it is a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to follow a panel with such a fascinating topic, and obviously very much interrelated to what we're going to be talking about today. So it's all about the future, which is a favorite topic of designers, and we're always thinking about what's next. That's the question on everyone's mind, especially when you're thinking about hospitality, and particularly how it relates to sustainability. I'm sure everyone in this room is aware of the climate concerns of hospitality guests, and it really impacts the guest's appreciation of a vacation experience. So, sustainable design presents wonderful opportunities, and there's a concept which I'm particularly partial to, which is circularity. Circularity relates to the interconnectedness of the natural environment, people, and the places they inhabit, and the places they work, rest, and play in. Circularity influences the approach to that interconnectedness, resulting in enhanced environmental preservation and wellness. It also expands into an approach to design that encompasses functional aspects such as flexibility in the design process, adaptability, longevity, and reuse. So all relate to topics that was on the previous panel. So this afternoon, we're going to look at some examples that incorporate this design approach, and some are macro, some are micro, and then we're going to drill down into some project specifics. So first, obviously, something which I know, the project that I know you're all familiar with, the Line. It's obviously a fascinating new urban living experience that's planned in the smart city of Neom. The Line will house 9 million inhabitants on a footprint of just 34 square kilometers, 500 meters high at the highest point and 200 meters wide and about 170 meters long. Now, just as a comparison, London has a population of 9.3 million, so pretty much comparable. And a footprint of 1,600 square kilometers. So you're comparing a footprint of 34 kilometers to 1,600. There's multiple of 47 on the population density. So it's, when you think about how that relates to the available land that you're leaving, with minimizing the footprint, it's really quite interesting. Obviously, Neom is housed in this elegant, glass facade. The Line's infrastructure will enable people to travel end to end in just 20 minutes with no need for cars, so zero transportation carbon footprint. Designed around the concept of zero-gravity urbanization, interesting terminology. What it means is the residents will have all of their daily needs within 5-minute walk of their neighborhoods. And then also, layered on top of that, within 2 minutes, they will be able to exit the Line out into the great, wonderful outside space. Energy and water supplies, 100% renewable. The design will create a year-round temperature microclimate through natural ventilation. So it's a vertical garden environment. It relates very much to some of the topics I'll be addressing later. Staying in Saudi Arabia, we have Coral Bloom in the Red Sea, which is another fascinating Saudi project designed by Foster and Partners on one of the 22 islands being developed as part of the Saudi Red Sea Vision 2030. The Red Sea development, as part of this, has committed to an ambitious 30% net conservation benefit by 2040. And that's a very ambitious target. The buildings are manufactured off-site from fully sustainable building materials, and the resort will be powered exclusively by wind and solar. Complex will rely on the world's largest battery storage system at 1,000 megawatt hours. And innovative sewage treatment systems will enable environmentally friendly waste management, which in turn creates new wetlands and obviously provides irrigation water. For those looking for a resort experience directly on the water, we're going a bit micro. There's a number of examples, one of which is the eco-friendly pods from Ocean Builders. These are designed to tackle lack of space in popular seaside destinations. Sea pods will exist as what marine biologists call fish aggregation devices, which means they provide shade which attracts sea life and fosters the growth of new coral reefs. Then we can move in a slightly different direction across the land to a movable hotel experience. Again, this is Habitaire, which allows hoteliers to develop in previously inaccessible locations. Obviously, product with a minimal footprint. By dramatically reducing typical costs, approvals, and timelines, Habitaire makes high-profit seasonal destinations instantly viable. Taking you to a different part of the world, entirely different approach to sustainable design comes in the form of Tsunami Park Skyscraper. This is a remarkable project from a handful of Chinese designers and intended for Tonga to protect against, obviously, tsunamis, while providing a truly unique accommodation experience. Based on the complex root structures of mangroves, which are very efficient in terms of tsunami mitigation, the skyscraper will be situated offshore along Tonga's long and narrow coastline, with the strong lower pillars dissipating the force of future tsunamis, protecting the island and its inhabitants. During normal conditions, the structure creates another massive fish aggregation device, improving the health of the local sea life. So, sustainability comes in all shapes and sizes. This is located in Harrods. This is not the Harrods you know and love in London, but Harrods in the north of Sweden. There are 6 assorted tree rooms and a sauna, all perched in the treetops. Not for the faint of heart, and not recommended for those who sleepwalk. There are no foundations, and I'm sure you will agree there's zero footprint. Minimal visual impact, and eco-friendly with underfloor heating supplied by hydroelectric power and a combustion toilet that incinerates waste at 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. At OBMI, one of our sustainable design ideas is a project I presented at this conference last year, ERA, which is a vertical luxury resort. ERA reimagines the traditional horizontal resort experience and converts it stacked into a vertical format, so the resort amenities and the accommodations are stacked vertically. It's designed to use significantly less land and within a city environment and promote local tourism, therefore reducing the need for air travel. Since cultural attractions are literally blocks away, sort of minimizes local transportation carbon footprint. A little bit more on ERA later. So, speaking of vacation travel, I have a question for you. How many of you flew to this conference? Can we raise some hands? Okay, how many of you actually were a little bit concerned about your climate impact, the climate impact of your flight? And again, it's something when you think about the guests, this same concern is echoed in the mind of many of our vacationers. There are all these wonderful places in the world to visit, but is the climate cost of travel really worth it? Aviation today accounts for 5 to 10% of greenhouse gas emissions. By 2050, if we continue on our current path, its estimate will become 25 to 50, which is ridiculous. So wouldn't it be nice to offer our guests the ability to travel to your resorts and with a totally clear conscience? We are fortunate. Creative Sustainable Design is looking to address this issue as well. There's a company called Zero Avia, which is designing hydrogen electric powertrain systems for airplanes. This is renewable hydrogen stored in tanks is converted into electricity in flight using fuel cells, which then powers the electric motors. Hydrogen is lighter, cheaper, less flammable than conventional fuel, and most importantly, hydrogen electric powertrains are zero emissions. Another potential solution for climate-friendly vacationing is sustainable aviation fuel. Yes, you heard that correctly, sustainable aviation fuel. The fuel is manufactured either directly or indirectly from CO2, ideally from CO2 emissions extracted from the air. This isn't a pipe dream. 450,000 airline flights have already been undertaken using sustainable aviation fuel as part of the fuel mix. On an interesting side note, Formula One racing is also exploring sustainable fuels, supported by Aramco, to maintain the viability of the support into the future. The Saudi Aramco and Cemex, a Mexican cement company, are just 2 examples of companies that have teamed up with sustainable aviation fuel partners to extract the CO2 needed for sustainable fuel for their production process. Obviously, fuel refineries and cement production are major sources of CO2, so this is an absolutely perfect marriage. So that's all intriguing, good macro-level stuff in terms of the future of sustainable design. But designers also have to think about sustainability on a much more practical micro level. So turning our thinking to sustainability on that micro level, we come up with this big question: how do we actually make it work? And how do we create built environments with sustainable foundations and truly sustainable operating systems? I'm going to circle back to error and use it as an example of how we found some solutions to these issues. To assist us with our vertical resort concept, we partnered with CASE, the Center for Architecture, Science and Ecology in Brooklyn, New York. The first great idea we seized upon was sustainable operating systems based on phytoremediation, which is a long, obviously tedious word, but in simple terms means using plants to condition air, water, and soil in an environment. This has the potential impact of being used in a variety of ways. Obviously, the first is air purification. This is done with, obviously, photosynthesis, as plants convert CO2 into breathable oxygen. To truly evaluate this concept, we needed to establish a baseline and make this concept quantifiable. So that's exactly what CASE did for us. They calculated respiratory CO2 emissions from the average human, as well as how much plant material it would take to absorb the CO2 from the 3,500 occupants at ERA, and recycle it into 100% fresh air supply. The required green wall was calculated to be almost 21,000 square meters. Actually, we had already designed the wall, the green wall to be about 60,000 square meters in ERA. But this saves on energy uses by not having to introduce and cool external air, especially, obviously, in hot climates like here. Air that might well arrive already polluted by the external environment. For airborne toxins other than CO2, CASE is exploring research initially pioneered by NASA for Mars expeditions. And this is on the ability of plant roots to act as biofilters. So formaldehyde, for example, is a common toxin found in air inside buildings through off-gassing. NASA's research demonstrates that plant roots eat toxins like this, further improving air quality and subsequently human health. The second way in this wonderful concept of photoremediation can impact sustainability is through grey water treatment. The same 60,000 square meters of green wall that purifies the air, is irrigated by the grey water. And at the same time, it purifies that grey water for recycling that we can use for future toilet flushing. So it's an integrated recycled system. Then the grey water treatment for the green wall also has the benefit of being an amenity, a visual feature that contributes to the psychological well-being of the guest. So it reduces the need for external water. There's more. There's passive air conditioning because, again, we have plants just sitting on the inside skin of the PTFE cloth. Shade planting, which obviously reduces the temperature inside the microclimate, reduces air conditioning, and obviously a positive on the owner's bottom line. Edible plants, again, become part of the landscaping through the phytoremediation process. So I guess you have a variation on it's food farm to table, it's landscape to table. And of course, along with the benefits I've just mentioned, proximity to plants is good for our psychological and holistic wellness. So, over the years, humans were evolved as formative part of their existence right next to plants, and we've created the ability to separate ourselves by putting ourselves in buildings. We actually Harvard did a study demonstrating that $40 per year of increased expenditure on improving air quality results in HR savings of $6,000 per year per person in reduced sick days. So again, CASE quantified it for ERA for us, which resulted in potentially $1.8 million in savings in potential sick days every year. So in order to optimize all the positive effects of photoremediation, CASE is compiling an exhaustive database of plants based on their response to the contributing factors of water, light, temperature, humidity, and nutrients, which will all be available for designers. So This design approach creates a natural circulatory system in the middle of what is generally a very mechanical system in our resorts, and repositions nature from being a peripheral role to a central one in the guest experience. I'm going to skip because I can see I'm running horribly short of time. So I think we've run through just a few examples of the way in which designers, architects, and scientists and researchers can utilize biophilic and sustainable design to create low carbon or zero carbon, ideally even net carbon environments, as well as creating the holistic guest experience. So one day, in the not too distant future, that your guest will have flown in on a plane powered by sustainable air fuel, arriving at the resort on pavement and roads, generating electricity from the movement of your electric vehicles, traveling to their rooms through a landscape with the vertical wind turbines discreetly spinning in the breeze. The resort will have been constructed from a combination of recycled building materials and agricultural byproducts. The resort windows and building fabric will be harvesting energy from the sun, and your plants will be purifying the air and water. Your guests will feel comfortably immersed in sustainability, so they can concentrate with a clear conscience and your wonderful, relaxing guest experience. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate the opportunity to briefly share these thoughts with you, and I wish you a very creative, sustainable future with your projects. Thank you.